Welcome to the Urban Wine Club podcast. Pour a glass, sit back, and enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Urban Wine Club podcast. I'm your host, Frank Stamos, and with me, as always, my co-host, Ari Kalos.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Frank, I am super excited about today. I think the most excited I've been. Not to say, wine and drinking wine isn't exciting, but we have some pretty cool guests today.
Absolutely. I mean, we've been very fortunate. First of all, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to all of our fans out there. We want to thank him for the support from this past year. Even though it's been a crazy ride, we've had so much to think about, so many challenges, but we're still thankful for the opportunities that 2020 did bring us, though. We had to change gears, and here we are, pumping out podcasts versus doing events like we were used to before.
But doing podcasts is awesome because we get to talk to people, as in our two guests today. And, I am Boston born and bred, so one of these guys, it's an honor and amazing to have him here. I won't say any more, Frank, just continue.
All right. As you said, Ari, it's an honor to bring on our guests, former NFL quarterback and New England Patriot, only because we're from Boston, and currently the founder of Doubleback Winery. Welcome Drew Bledsoe and his winemaker, Josh McDaniels. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time, and welcome to our show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us, guys. Fun to be on with you. And it is a crazy new world, right? Josh and I, we've had a couple opportunities to do some in-person wine events here in the last few months. And I think Josh made the comment it was kind of different for him to present wine and actually be wearing pants for a change.
Absolutely.
It's going to be tough getting back into the swing of things, I think, when this is all kind of blown over. But, that's a good problem to have, I think.
I'm wearing pants today, though, just for the record.
We're going to have everybody stand up just to make sure. But how did those live events go for you? Was it weird? Was it comfortable? Like, how did you feel?
Well, I'll jump in first, Josh, and you can talk about it a little bit. But, at first it was odd, and quite honestly, if you'd told us a year ago that we were going to do Zoom wine tastings, I would have felt like we were just being lazy and we just didn't want to travel. But now this whole thing has been so normalized. It's been pretty cool. I've been able to. I actually did one Zoom tasting actually while I was playing golf, that was awesome. It was during the time when there were no sports on television, and so the people that tuned in got to see some really bad golf while we were doing a Zoom tasting. I don't know, Josh, what's your experience been with this stuff?
It's been good. I'll echo Drew's comments. It was really weird at first, but I have to say it's been cool also to stay connected to people on the East Coast and people in other areas that we don't get to travel to in a normal year. And so to have that diversity and the ease in which to jump on a Zoom call and see people's faces, that part's been really nice.
Yeah, and we're always talking about when COVID is kind of over, done with, and we could get back to normal. I think there's going to be elements of this Zoom thing that are going to stick around. It's like going in person is 100% going to be awesome, but like if I wanted to talk to Drew or to you, Josh, we're going to have to rely on Zoom regardless of what the situation is. So it's a pretty cool thing. And just imagine this last year without Zoom or without tech. Oh my God, I don't even know what we would have done.
Let's not think
about it. No, let's not think about that stuff. Let's just talk. Let's get back to talking. Let's talk more. Let's talk more wine. That's more.
Yeah. So Drew, could you take us through the timeline for our audience of how this all started for you? Because in my opinion, it's a fascinating story, and I'd love for you to tell us.
Yeah. I mean, I'll try to be as brief as I can. But I grew up in Walla Walla, and for anybody that's never been there, it's just this beautiful little town, little Norman Rockwell painting of a town. It really is. When you're growing up in a place, you don't really recognize what it is. It took leaving and coming back to really understand how magical the place is. It was a great place to grow up. I did not know know that there was any wine happening whatsoever growing up. It was just not part of what we did at home. And I just didn't know it was, I think, and as a matter of fact, I think I graduated high school in 1990. And I think in 1990, there were only 5 wineries. So the wine industry was really in its super early infancy when I was in high school, but went off to Washington State and then went back and then was playing for the Patriots. And when I was playing ball, we started to get into wine.
Okay.
My wife and I started to get into wine, and there were a lot of dudes on the team that were into wine also. And the thing that was really magical for me, and this was really the inception of the concept of starting a winery in Walla Walla, I would have these guys come over to the house, and whenever they came over, it's like, hey, just bring a bottle of red wine. And so they would bring a bottle of red wine, and we would do blind tastings at the house. We'd put all these wines in paper bags. Well, I would always go grab something from Walla Walla and put it in the lineup against these big boys from Napa and Bordeaux and other parts of the world. Well, we would taste through all these wines, and every time we did that, when we unveiled at the end, the winning wine was from Walla Walla. And this happened over and over and over again. And that's really when the seed was planted. Like, okay, maybe after this football odyssey is over, we could get into the wine business, and we could do it in my hometown and not just make wine, but potentially make wine that can stand up with the best in the world. So that's really where the seed was planted. My last year in ball was 2006, and we launched Doubleback in 2007. Quickly, and then I'm going to throw it to Josh real quick.
Sure.
The Doubleback name, people have wondered if that's a football term, and it's not. It's not a football term. People, hey, you got quarterback, halfback, fullback, doubleback, right? Like, no, that's not it. What we really wanted the story to be, rather than the story, dumb jock starts winery, we wanted the story to be, a small town kid who gets to have another career and then doubles back and comes back home. And so the Doubleback name is talks to the idea that I grew up there, went off and had this other thing, and then doubled back and came back home.
Nice.
Oh, that's really cool.
Josh, why don't you share these guys your story? It's it's a pretty captivating story also.
Yeah, so I got to grow up here in Walla Walla also. It was like Drew said, it wasn't somewhere as a kid that I thought I'd stay after college, but certainly the wine industry changed my mind, and what the wine industry did to the valley was just absolutely incredible. And so I started my own winery when I was in high school. Got to work, grew up with the Figgins family here in Walla Walla, kind of the founding fathers of Washington wine on a qualitative level. So spent a decade working for Leonetti and Figgins, and got ingrained into my blood Cabernet, but fell in love early on actually with Sangiovese, mostly because it was the cheapest wine they made. So it was the only one I could afford. But, I also, got to grow up here as a kid, and Drew Bledsoe was this, mythical God figure that every young boy aspired to be. There's a shrine in the entrance to the local gymnasium for Drew. And, I like to joke that he built himself and
I certainly subsidized it and donated lots of stuff, but
yeah,
it looks a lot like Josh's bedroom, just a shrine.
Yeah, but Drew is this local hero for sure. And when I got into wine, it was interesting to me, when Drew announced his retirement from the NFL. And obviously I had followed his career, and so did a lot of locals. And my knee-jerk reaction was great. Another celebrity athlete wine that's going to slap his name on the bottle of really ripe Cabernet with 200% new oak and sell it for $500 a bottle. And the cool thing that happened was I really think you can give credit to Drew for breaking that stigma of what, those celebrity wines were back in the late 1990s, mid 2000s. And he came out, he bought a piece of property, developed that property into a world-class vineyard, hired my longtime mentor, Chris Figgins, as a great winemaker, and then, built a business based on the success of the wine quality. And, called it Doubleback, and built this, really kind of old world styled Cabernet. And it was something that I, after over time fell in love with and became a true believer, and was really happy and excited to take over back in with the 2014 vintage.
And is that the vintage that made it to Spectator 100?
Actually, the very first vintage did.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that 2007, our first vintage, we made the Spectator's Top 100 list our first year, which was awfully nice of them. But I will tell you that when Josh took over in 2014, those ended up being the highest rated wines we'd made to that point, which was kind of cool because he was, Chris Figgins is a great friend to both of us. And he is, at that point was kind of a rock star in the wine world. And Josh was the protege stepping for his mentor, and for him to release wines that the critics gave our highest marks ever in his first vintage with his name on the bottle was a pretty cool moment.
That's awesome. Can you tell us what is it that makes Walla Walla so special as a wine producing area?
It's interesting. People that have not spent time in the northwestern United States, but only see, or hear what's out there publicly. When you think about Washington, Oregon, you think about rain. You think about Seattle. It just rains all the time. Portland rains all the time. Well, the reason that happens is that there's the Cascade Mountain Range that runs down the middle of both of those states, and that is a rain trap for all this moisture that comes off the Pacific Ocean, comes in, hits those mountains, and all that moisture falls out. But when you get on the other side of the mountains, it's more of a desert climate. And that's where we are. We're over on the dry side. So what we get is these long, hot summer days. In the middle of the summer, we actually get an hour more sunshine than they do in California. But then it still cools off really nicely at night. So that allows us to have longer hang time in the vineyard, allows us to develop good natural acidity in the grapes that we grow. And then you combine that with some really unique soil that, I won't go complete geology nerd on you right now, but it is got a really cool history. When I was growing up, we were famous for growing sweet onions. It turns out our soil, it's one of two places in the United States where you can grow sweet onions: Walla Walla, Washington, and Vidalia, Georgia, where you can grow sweet onions. And that wasn't very cool, by the way. Who wants to talk about, hey, yeah, my hometown, we grow great onions. Like, oh, that's really, really cool. Congratulations. But we've since been able to prove that our soil is uniquely suited to growing great wine grapes, but it's also fantastically diverse within a small area. Josh, why don't you talk about kind of some of the diversity we have in our estate vineyards, even though they're in such close proximity?
Yeah, and in every great wine growing region of the world, you think about Bordeaux, think about the left bank. There's all these basically sub appellations, St. Julien and Margaux and Pauillac, et cetera. The same thing, in Napa, a small area, but there's Redford and Howell Mountain and Coombsville and et cetera. And Walla Walla is no different. It's just younger. And so there's the Walla Walla Valley that's a very small area, but there's also, our first sub-appellation was just designated a few years ago called the Rocks District. Over the, next couple of decades, there could be another handful of sub-appellations that come along just within the valley. And so, what I got, really fortunate with it growing up at Leonetti is they had vineyard sites for the estate all over these different, what will eventually be sub-AVAs. And so I got to understand the importance of having diversity in your cellar, and as an example, this last decade, we had the warmest vintage on record and the coldest vintage on record. And how do you make a consistently great wine with that much, turbulence?
Right.
It ended up being just blending across vineyard sites. In cold years, I can lean out towards the southwest end of the valley, and in warm years, I can lean up towards the northeast. And you get, different soil sites. You go from sand to clay. You go from fractured basalt to rolled cobblestones. You go from 4 inches of annual precipitation to 23 inches of annual precipitation. And basically, the joke that we like to use is, when Bob Ross is on TV painting this picture, we're building a color palette in the cellar of these estate vineyard sites that we can take and then use that to go into blending trials and create, complex wines and wines with consistent high quality across, different growing seasons. So it's just a really cool region to work with. I
mean, the microclimate itself is interesting. The soil compositions is, interesting. A lot of folks who are now, getting into wines from Washington, it's been a category that's been overlooked for many years, at least on the East Coast for consumers. And we're also trying to encourage a lot of our members and our audience to really explore wines from Washington. And when they do come across a Cabernet from Washington, it's always this expectation because of their been so used to drinking cabs from California. What could you tell us or tell our guests, our audience about, what is it about Washington cab that differentiates from California cab?
When we set out on to make Doubleback, as Josh indicated earlier, I think when you think about a football player that's going to make wine, where does your mind go? Well, it's going to be just this massive wine. It's going to be one of these thick wines you can eat with a fork with 18% alcohol and super extracted and just in your face stuff. And quite honestly, those were the first wines that I fell in love with because they were obvious. You know, you go like, oh, I can taste all of that. It's right up front. But over time, my palate started to gravitate toward wines that had more balance, more elegance, wines that were contemplative, wines that were more interesting the more time you spent with them, rather than, I found some of those bigger wines that I fell in love with initially. The most interesting sip of that style of wine was the very first one. And then after that, it was less interesting. Well, the wines I started to gravitate to were wines that got more interesting. And the last sip you had was the most interesting sip. Right. And thankfully, our valley lends itself to that. And if I had to pick one word that we strive for across the board, it would be balance. If you make a wine where everything is in harmony, those are the wines that continue to be more and more interesting, both as they sit in the glass and also as they age over the years. One of the things that we say that, it's a marketing pitch, but it's actually also, I believe, the truth. The Walla Walla Valley captures the best of the New World and the best of the Old World. So you have pretty New World fruit like you might find in California, but you also have structure, balance, acid that you would find in the Old World. But, versus the Old World wines, you don't have to wait 25 years for them to be enjoyable while they settle down, where we are. And that combination, I really think is a really magical thing that happens where you have wines, Josh and I were just drinking through some of the brand new wines that are still in tank. We're just getting ready to bottle in a couple of weeks. And these wines are beautiful, even though they haven't gone into the bottle yet. There is structure, there is acid, but they are still really pretty wines in their youth. And so it's a really great time and place to be in the wine industry. And for your consumers out there, you talked about trying to steer them toward Walla Walla. It kind of pisses us off, to be honest with you, because we're known as a great value wine region. You get more bang for your buck in Walla Walla, at every price point, for the scores that Josh has been able to create for Doubleback. If we were in Napa or Bordeaux, the wines that get the similar scores are, in the case of Napa, 3 to 4 times our price. And in Bordeaux, they might be 10 times our price to get the same scores that Josh is producing for us. So it kind of pisses us off because we would much rather, from a financial standpoint, we'd love to sell our wines for $500. But the great thing for the consumer is that if you see Walla Walla, you're going to get very, very high quality wine that's going to outperform other wines in that same price point across the board.
That's exactly the message that we always love to promote to our members about value. And as you mentioned, we always feel that Washington and Walla Walla do deliver that value.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Hey, Josh, talk a little bit about why you continue to gravitate toward Walla Walla Cabernet versus other parts of the world.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with the perfect in-between, and you look at Washington State. I was actually on a panel. We did a blind kind of Walla Walla against the world Cabernet tasting. And there was a Red Mountain wine, our Cabernet from Walla Walla, and then California Napa Cab, which I think was Dominus, and then a Left Bank Bordeaux, I think it was Ponte Canet. And it was really cool because, Red Mountain really gravitated towards Napa. And everyone guessed Doubleback might be the Bordeaux. And it was Ponte Canet and Doubleback. And, I think that's exactly the right thing that I love about it is that you get some of that grapefruit that you get in Napa, but you also get hints of bell pepper. You get hints of tobacco leaves. I remember Gary Figgins on the Crush Pad when I was young. He said, a little pyrazine never killed anyone. And to be honest, I love that about Bordeaux, but it's not over the top. Aromatically, but at the same time, you get that chewiness and the graininess of Bordeaux and those Left Bank gravels, and you get that here in Walla Walla. And so, you get it at, like Drew mentioned, we get about an hour of sunlight more during the summertime, and so we get ripe. But then in the fall, we cool off a lot faster than Napa, and so we kind of hit our ripeness levels. And then, as a numbers basis, our bricks are there, the acids are there, but then you can hang out for a couple more weeks and basically get your flavor ripeness. And that's what I really love about Washington State is you're not down in Napa, you're picking in Cabernet in early September because it's so hot and the bricks are 32. And if you don't get it off, you're not going to finish ferments.
Oh, wow.
Basically up here, we're just waiting. We have the, in a good year, we have the luxury of waiting for flavors to get truly ripe. And then we could be natural winemakers in the cellars because the vineyards and the vintage gave us great flavors itself. And so I love that about Walla Walla.
Now we're talking about value here. Besides Doubleback, you recently launched also Bledsoe wine portfolio. Is that something we can touch on?
Yeah. So, it's kind of cool. And we've talked about this. The Bledsoe family winery was really created by customer demand. We originally, there was one wine that went in there first. That was our Stolen Horse Syrah that we made back in 2009. We were only going to make it 1 year, kind of a just for fun project. But the consumer demand was so strong that we had to bring that one back. And then we started making our Bledsoe family wine, which was essentially a place for all this great wine that we were bringing in that just for whatever reason, stylistically didn't make it into the Doubleback blend, but was still great juice, still gets French oak, still gets the whole team's best efforts. But for whatever reason, stylistically didn't go into the Doubleback blend. So we started releasing that wine, and then, really started to talk about, okay, well, you know what, there's enough demand here. Maybe we should build another winery around this wine. And then the other thing that winery allows us to do, they've called it lovingly the winemaker's sandbox, if you will. You could, Josh, get some other toys to play around with, where we make some rosé, we make some Chardonnay, and then we also get the ability to release a couple of special club wines every year. 2 years ago, we included a little bit of Pinot Noir that we got from the Willamette Valley as a club wine, and a little bit of single vineyard Syrah from the Rocks District that Josh was talking about earlier. The response was so strong to those that we now have a third winery. It's called Bledsoe McDaniels, that's based on those two wines, and there will eventually be that will flesh out that portfolio. This year we released a little bit of Malbec and a little bit of Viognier as club wines, and the response certainly to the Malbec was strong enough that the consumer is probably going to demand that we bring that back and build a brand around that one too. So it allows us to play around a little bit more. We're very, very protective of the Doubleback brand. That is purely an expression of the very best Cabernet we can make from our estate vineyards in the Walla Walla Valley every single year. And we never want to dilute that brand. That'll always be that. We make some other fun stuff. We make a little bit of Doubleback Chardonnay. We make a little bit of Doubleback Merlot. But that is really, it's just one brand, and we never want to mess with that. But Bledsoe Family Winery allows us to be a little more experimental and do some other fun stuff. I will say, though, in saying that, I don't want anybody to ever have the impression that those wines don't get our team's best effort. Everything that Josh and the team make for us gets their very best efforts, and they make amazing wines for us across the board. So even though they're a little bit lower price wines, and there are more of them, none of it is half-hearted. All of it gets the full attention of Josh and the entire team.
Well, we're big fans of both portfolios. Great job to what you're doing. And one thing we want to definitely mention to our audience is that all of your estates are sustainably farmed.
Well, Josh, why don't you talk about that? Because sustainability to us has, a specific meaning in the vineyards, but it also has some broader meaning. Josh, why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, sustainable farming is just that. It's farming, but it's also community. It's also, environmental. The farming aspect of it goes a long way. So we don't use any Roundup on our vineyards. We have biodiversity plantings. So we have rows of lavender. We have wildflower mixes. We have native rose bushes. We have a lot of trees planted around our vineyards that encourages beneficial organisms basically to fight off bad ones. So it's natural instead of having to go in and use sprays to kill things off. A really cool one that's so visual is we alternate row crop our mowing. And so, you think about just that one simple act cuts down soil compaction and diesel usage by 50%. It's simple-minded things that are very pragmatic and make big differences in what our environmental impact is and the quality and the organic side of what goes into the bottle. At the same time, though, 2 years ago, we started our own farming company that manages our own estate vineyards. And a big part of our sustainable certification means that, our vineyard crew is, one of the highest paid crews in the valley. We take care of them like family. They have full retirement benefits, full health insurance, and we keep them on all year. So rather than, being laid off after 9 months of farming and saying, go find something else to do, we keep them busy here in the winery. You've probably seen our packaging. All that's done by hand by our vineyard crew. And it's a really good feel-good thing because it's the right thing to do. Cool thing that was not intentional, and we found after the fact that we started this, it's actually boosted our quality too, because, in the past we had crews would come in on a contracted basis and do the work and kind of just do the work and get it done. But our crew now takes so much pride in each individual vine in our vineyard and just absolutely love what they do and just have taken the quality to a next level. So the sustainable farming is a huge part of what we do and something that's been extremely important to us. And it's been, I think, successful beyond what we thought it would be. And it's a really cool thing to be able to say.
Awesome. Yeah, we're big fans of those that practice sustainable farming because, it goes a long way as far as the type of consumer we are today. We always want to be very cautious about what we put into our bodies, right? But anything that you want to share that's in the pipeline that we haven't covered for Doubleback?
I think we've kind of touched on the things that are available out there. I do encourage people. We make a little bit of a state reserve every year, just a few barrels, and this is because we now are making enough wine. It allows us, as Josh was talking about, that palette that he's able to create for us to blend from. We also track, a few barrels every year that we think are performing particularly uniquely well, and that goes into our estate reserve. But it's super limited. Generally, just goes out to our list and to our VIPs. But if you're pursuing the very, very best of the best of what we do, that estate reserve is what you're pursuing. Not much of it makes it to distribution, so not very nice of me to talk about that with your wine shop. But it is a pretty cool wine that's a lot of fun to present.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to take a trip to the winery then to get some.
That would be the last thing I would say to you guys specifically, and also to your consumers out there, is when we're able to travel again, please come see us in Walla Walla.
Absolutely.
I am batting 1,000 every time I've recommended Walla Walla to somebody, and they come out to the valley. It becomes their favorite wine region in the United States very, very quickly. The way I've described it, and I've actually talked to people that grew up in Napa, and they've echoed this and said this is actually the truth. If you want to know what the Napa Valley felt like 40 or 50 years ago, you come to Walla Walla. It's still very much in its youth. There are amazing wines, 150-ish wineries in the valley, and a lot of those making really amazing stuff. The food scene has followed, so there's great food as well. We've only lost one of our restaurants, I think, and hopefully, knock on wood, the rest of them survive. But the cool thing is you get this amazing wine, great food, cool little town. But when you pull in and park in downtown, there might be a Tesla parked next to you on one side, but on the other side, there's a dirty old pickup truck, and that's the farmer. And, you got to be careful, too, because the dirty old pickup truck, that farmer's probably got more money than the guy driving the Tesla. But he's got a lot of dirt on his boots because he was out in the vineyard that day.
Nice. Well, this has been a treat for us, Drew and Josh. We definitely appreciate listening to the both of you. We want to definitely bring this interview to our guests so they can appreciate more about Walla Walla, Doubleback, and so forth. Those that want to learn more about the winery, do you want to announce the web address, any social media handles that you want to let us know about?
Yeah, that's pretty simple. If you're looking for the web address, if you just type Bledsoe Wine into the search bar, it's going to pull it up. But the landing page for all three wineries is Bledsoe Wine Estates. We have a live shopping cart on the Bledsoe Family Winery site, and then the social media handles should just at Doubleback, at Bledsoe Family Winery. Those are pretty straightforward as well.
Excellent. Ari, any last minute questions for Drew or Josh?
Yeah, I love these types of interviews where I was already sold on everything you guys do just from past experience, from reading, from whatever. But I love the interviews where after we're done with the interview, it really, really solidifies the impact that you guys have and the knowledge that you guys have. And it's just one of those things where I can't wait to get this published so everybody out there who doesn't know can really hear it from you guys. And to me, it's amazing what you guys have been doing, and we appreciate it, and we appreciate your time, and we appreciate that you are on with us. It was a great thing that you guys did. Thank you.
We're definitely going to have you back at some point again soon.
Yeah, let us know. Like I say, we're loving doing this stuff. So
Awesome.
Anytime we can jump on, it'd be great. Yeah, it's been really a pretty amazing project. It's kind of funny with some of the repurposed time that we had this year with the team, of all the events canceled and all of that stuff. First of all, our team just rocked it. They did a great job. No complaints. They nailed it. But we also were able to do a pretty deep dive into our business. And it's funny, we're 13 coming up on 14 years in, and we feel like we're just sort of getting going. It's like, okay, well, we're sort of just now exiting the startup phase of our business after 14 years, which is really pretty crazy. But the one of the things that's most exciting to me, that should be exciting to the consumers out there, is that Josh and the team have made these amazing wines for us all the way up to this point. And I never want this to be insulting in any way to the wines that they've made us to this point, but our best wines are still in front of us. Josh talking about our farming crew and the attention to detail they're paying there. We've got our own winery that we moved into in 2018, so the team has total control there. And like I say, we just went and pulled samples out of the tanks, stuff that hasn't even been bottled yet. And man, across the board, just outstanding wine. So follow what we're doing, and just know that whatever you've had so far from us, hopefully you really loved it. But we're continuing to get better, and we're striving to get better in every way.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for the time. Ari, thanks again for co-hosting as always.
Oh man, I was looking forward to this one, and it was just as good as I thought it would be. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Frank.
guys.
All right, guys. We want to thank everybody out there for listening and watching. This is going to be posted. We're going to have all the info for the winery and for the wines posted as well. And we want to thank everybody out there. And again, very much thank you to Drew Bledsoe and Josh McDaniels. Thanks, guys. You guys are doing great things, and we're going to see more great things, and I can't wait.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Take care.